Kevin, this was described by opponents as a huge power grab by the government. This wasn't taking back control to Parliament. This was the government having these Henry VIII powers. They were going to tinker with all of these laws when they come back from the EU. But actually, it went through perfectly comfortably, and apparently MPs aren't that bothered at all.
Well, they'll rebel later, I think, particularly on the Conservative side, and they just didn't want to damage the Prime Minister. But when she says it's historic, I mean, she's way over the top. This bill has still got to go through lots of stages in Parliament. It's not law yet. She's just she's a drowning woman clutching at a straw because she's had so many knockbacks.
The line I thought was interesting was, I think it was Frank Field, I think was the one, who for me summed up, I think, what must be a general view. He was not prepared to defy the democratic will of the people. That effectively, if you vote against this bill, that's partly what you're doing.
No, you're not. You can vote against this bill because you want a sovereign parliament. This bill will sideline Parliament because, as I said, Theresa May will take so many Henry VIII powers. She will take back control for herself, not for the country. That's why you can have Brexit, but there's many different ways of doing Brexit. But this is a power grab by a very weak Prime Minister who sees it as an opportunity to bolster herself.
Andrew, you've got that withering look on your face. Too much Maguire, 620.
He's had an uncomfortable night.
For 43 years since we joined the common market, as it was then, they have had supremacy. They have had supremacy over British law. This bill simply says that all the law that was passed by the EU over the last 43 years, most of it which was way through Parliament on a nod of a head with no proper debate, is now going to reverse it, and it enables Parliament to be sovereign. That's what people voted for in Brexit.
As a Brexiter,
yeah.
Right? Do you accept that there are many, as Kevin says, there are many different ways to shape this Brexit, right? It can be very hard, it can be soft, it can be whatever. Is it not useful and indeed imperative that our parliamentary MPs sit there for hours and thrash out the best possible form of Brexit? Is that not an intelligent way of spending their time?
Yes, it is. But this lot, the Labour MPs voted to scupper it completely. If they'd won the vote last night, that could potentially be the end of Brexit. And what would British people say to that? Because they voted for it in a referendum. It's very important that this enables Parliament to take all the law that was put into law by the EU back into British law. Straightforward.
But Andrew, the point is that people are concerned about is this doesn't bring it back to Parliament.
Yes, it does.
It brings it back to ministers and government, and that's not democracy.
There's plenty of time, as Kevin said earlier, for this bill to be amended because it's gone through the first stage, and there will be some tweaking here and there. But just remember, when
Are we reaching consensus here?
No.
He's shifted already. He's shifted in 2 minutes. He now sees it's got to be changed.
When the EU passed all these laws, Parliament didn't debate it. They allowed the EU to do it with no debate whatsoever.
So we should have debate on all of these laws, is what you're saying.
We are going to have more debate than we did when these laws were put into place by the EU. More debate, more scrutiny. And that's a good thing.
This is about Downing Street diktat, not the sovereignty of Parliament. For instance, Clause 17 will allow ministers very easily to change employment laws, consumer rights, so many things. Now, I'm glad you've now given ground, and it's a little baby step, I know, that you see it's got to be changed. This bill had fallen, she'd have to bring forward another bill. Now, they've made a mess, and it's really chaotic the way they're doing Brexit, because in March, they trigger the Article 50, the 2-year clock ticking down. They spend 6 months not doing anything, having an election, and then getting rings run round them by the other side because they don't know what they're asking for. And if you go into negotiations and you don't know what you want, what you're going to get. It's like going to your boss, I want a pay rise. What pay rise do you want?
It's exhausting listening to this boring one-track record.
But putting aside all the point scoring, he has got a good point.
Yeah, no, it's
putting aside the point scoring.
Exhausting listening to Maguire churning this old bile out every week. The fact is, Kevin can't get away from the fact him and a lot of those Labour MPs last night are desperate to stop Brexit, and that's why a lot of them voted against it last night.
A whole load of the Labour MPs last night defied their leaders' whip to vote against this and voted with the government.
Yes, because they know in Labour's election manifesto in June In June, only June, Labour's Jeremy Corbyn said, we will back Brexit. Last night, he took his troops through the lobbies and they voted against Brexit. Double standards and hypocrisy on a grand scale.
Because it's a UK Parliament, should point out that also voting against it were the Scottish Nationalists, Plaid Cymru in Wales.
They're the official
Green,
opposition, Kevin.
It
was in their manifesto.
No, it's quite important to remember. It's not just two parties having a battle. It is a wide